You good to go? Cool. Okay, so then what I'm going to do too, I'm going to pass this to you. I don't know if you've used one of these before, but I'll just, like when I ask a question, I'll just pass it to you. And what are we, Logan, are we like check right here is good? On volume, check. Okay, so you don't have to go like super close. You can just go like to here. We'll use like audio engineering to cut out any like background noise that will be here. So
awesome.
Good? All right. So I'm here with Dr. Christopher Palmer. We're at Low Carb Denver 2023. For everybody who's listening to this, I know that if you listen to this podcast, I know you've listened to the full episode that we had with Dr. Palmer because it's been the best performing episode that I've done to date. I don't know if I told you that yet.
You did not tell me that.
But I've done 3 seasons of the podcast, man, and this is the #1 performing podcast. And it's not even close either. It's like by a long shot. It's the best performing one, so thank you for that. But you had your talk yesterday, and it sounds like it went really well. But tell me a little bit about like how your talk yesterday at this conference was received. I know, and to lay the land for everybody who's not here, this conference is a little bit different from say like KetoCon, where it's more practitioners. It's more like you're getting CMUs for coming to this, so it's people who are coming here to learn more so they can improve their ability to practice and help people. So what was the reception like yesterday during your talk?
So I think people were very enthusiastic about it, and some people in the crowd were already familiar with me and the book and the theory, but a lot of people I don't think were.
Oh.
And So I think people are excited. They are excited about new therapeutic tools that we have to offer patients with chronic, unrelenting mental disorders.
Nice. And then so even outside, so here, obviously, and we talked about this yesterday, that we are a little bit in an echo chamber here where everybody here has an understanding of the role metabolic health plays in many different chronic diseases and things. But what has the reception been in your community, in the psychiatric community? Is it something that are you also seeing that same level of excitement there, or are you seeing kind of dogma and people being frustrated with what you're trying to do?
Honestly, on one hand, when I present to academic audiences, I go academic. I flex my presentations based on my audience. And so I go academic. And the reality is that this research dates back decades. We have decades of clinical, epidemiological, basic science, neuroimaging, even genetic research. When you look at what are the genes doing, the genes that are associated with mental illness, what are they doing? They're all associated with impairment in metabolism, in brain metabolism. And so when I present this evidence, and when I point out the connections between mental illness and metabolic disorders, like obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, when I point out that our patients are dying early deaths, everybody in the room knows it. Everybody in the room is frustrated as hell that we don't have better answers. And so they're excited and intrigued to see, wait, this person is connecting some of these dots. I'm interested, I'm intrigued. Some people jump on the bandwagon right away and want to tell me what to do, tell me how I can help my patients. I want to start doing this right away. I think the overwhelming response from that conservative clinician audience is just silence. They don't know what to think. They're not attacking it because I think they know they can't.
Yeah.
It's science. It's evidence. It's published in the best journals that we've got. So if you want to get into a debate about some of the nuances of it or the granular details of it, happy to do that. But I think they know they can't attack the overarching message. And then there's another cohort of people that are enthusiastic about seeing their patients getting these treatments. They know, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what to do. So they're asking me, hey, can I send you 10 patients? And unfortunately, I'm in the position of having to say, no, unfortunately, I can't.
Yeah.
I'm one person. I can't treat the world. And I think that's part of the challenge of where we're at now, is how do we pair this exciting cutting-edge information, the research and clinical implications that it has for real patients today, and how do we address the need, the gap? How do we get clinicians educated on these treatments? How do we educate patients and families that there's something better available or something different available? And then how do we pair those patients who want these treatments with the clinicians who know how to offer them?
Love it. No, that's incredible, and I'm glad to hear that's a little bit better response than I was expecting. To be honest, I was expecting, like we see, like I know, Dave Feldman this morning presented some really interesting research on cholesterol and LDL, and I know that cardiovascular medicine is an area where there's a lot of resistance to anything. It's like if you say anything against the grain, you're very much, you're labeled a quack and you're like out. So I'm curious to hear how it was going in your industry if you were seeing something similar. So that makes me optimistic that people are a little bit more responsive to it. What do you think it looks like getting to that point? Because obviously with your book, Brain Energy, I think that's a huge step in the right direction, because that is a book that people who are looking, practitioners who are looking for a better solution, who are unhappy with the outcomes that they're seeing with their patients, they're going to find that book and it's going to change everything for them. And I think they're going to see that, they're going to learn the science behind it, and they're going to seek out, opportunities to figure out how they can better implement that into their practice. But then you have some, doctors and or practitioners who maybe aren't looking for other alternative methods like that. So what do you think this looks like? Like, I guess when we can talk about, you mentioned more of the patients, but thinking more about like the doctors and the practitioners, what do you think it looks like getting this message out there more so that this becomes a more standard protocol for us to be focusing on metabolic health and mitochondrial function, compared to what we're doing now?
I think there are two primary strategies, and one, again, is for me as a mental health professional, as a professional educator. I'm the director of continuing ed at McLean Hospital, which is a Harvard-affiliated hospital. Have done that for over 20 years. So this is kind of my day job. This is something I know how to do. It's in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So one step is to simply develop education for the clinicians. The clinicians who want to learn how to do this, develop sound, evidence-based education, teaching them about the evidence-based practices of all of the different strategies. So it's diet, exercise, stress reduction, sleep, all sorts of things. And a lot of these are already in our wheelhouse. A lot of them are going to be common sense. Most clinicians already know it. But some of them they have no idea about, like dietary strategies for serious mental illness. That seems foreign to most people.
Yeah.
So that's one part of the strategy, is educate the clinicians who want to learn. But the other part really is educate patients and family members. Number one, just raise awareness. Let them know there's another way available. Number two, empower them to talk to their clinicians about this treatment. So give them speaking tips on how to prepare for your appointment, how to talk about this, what research articles to present to your clinician. How do you get them to take this seriously? Let your clinician know that you want these treatments. We're also hoping to develop, materials for patients and family members, assessments and tips on ketogenic diet, tips on other strategies to help people do some of these treatments.
Yeah.
And that will create demand. If those patients go into their clinicians and say, I want this treatment, first time a patient does that, clinician's going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. This sounds like quackery. Sounds like you got bamboozled by some smooth talking, YouTubing psychiatrist. And, I'm sorry, but you got bamboozled. Just give it up.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you your evidence-based pills.
Yeah.
But when they hear from the second patient, they're going to be like, who is this guy? He's reaching a lot. And third patient, fourth patient.
Yeah.
They're going to start thinking, maybe I better look into this. Maybe I better figure this out and see what there is to it. Even if they go to that skeptically, I'm hopeful that they will see the overwhelming amount of evidence that we've got to support this theory and the treatments that, it leads to. And I'm hopeful that they'll start to open their mind, and then maybe they'll join a training course and learn how to do this.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I'm hopeful that happens too. I think I always talk about how I think a lot of times we, in our space, because we're typically going against standard medicine, traditional medicine, not going against it, but just going a little bit different from what's become the standard of care. A lot of people tend to think that doctors are inherently evil and that they don't want to help people. And I was talking about this with Dr. Quadro earlier. It's like nobody goes through medical school and spends all the time that you guys have to spend to get to where you are to not want to help people. Most people want to do good, but they're set up in systems that don't really allow them to do the best. They don't set them up for success. doctors are just being overwhelmed with the amount of patients they have to see, the approved treatment protocols for them, is stuff that they have to stick to. Not every doctor has the ability or the wiggle room to offer alternative forms of medicine. So I think it's a system thing that we need to improve. And I think you're right that I think at the end of the day, most of these practitioners and physicians are going to want what's best for the patient. So if they start seeing, these testimonials, I think this is a call to, anybody who starts following these methods, like sharing those things is important. When those testimonials get out there, like that's what needs to happen, because when you start seeing these people have these dramatic changes, like the case reports that you share, these things that, you talk about them in the book, when like if those get out there, it's undeniable at that point. Like it's like you have to at least start considering it, right? And so I think that's a big piece of it. The other component that I'm curious to ask your thoughts on is, do you think that there is a model of healthcare that is going to be required to shift things that's going to be different from the standard? And kind of what I mean is like, like at BioCoach, for instance, here we have like a digital platform that we use. And what we found is that, some people who are looking to finally reverse diabetes or get off of that medication and stuff, they're ditching their doctor and they're coming to our platform. And, where I think that is good is that like doctors have a business that they need to run too. And if they're losing patients to a different area, an online platform or something, that's going to make them wake up and say, I need to start considering these other forms of medicine. Do you think something is possible, or is that a route that may be necessary on your guys' side too, of like just shifting the actual healthcare model too? Like, do you think that, I guess, and to give you a more pointed question, do you think that the current healthcare model is so broken that it's not fixable, or that we need a new one, or is it a hybrid of both, or how do we kind of get to that point?
So there's no doubt in my mind we need new models of care.
Okay.
The current model of care in the mental health field is that you show up to an independent practitioner, whether it's a psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, and you get a service. And the service that most psychiatrists are in the business of doing is giving you a prescription and asking you questions. How's that prescription working? And let's tweak your prescription or give you a new one, or stop this old one and start a different one. And that's their business. The business of psychotherapists is show up to my office, you're in my appointment, we're going to talk for 50 minutes, and then you're going to go home. Whether you get homework or not, whether you're asked to do anything, sometimes you are, sometimes you're not.
Yeah.
But it's one clinician, one patient, regular visits, and that's the treatment. Zero doubt in my mind, we need really a revolution in the way healthcare is delivered. And I am strongly advocating for multidisciplinary teams of professionals. So we need teams of professionals working together in concert. And that means maybe a psychiatrist and a psychologist or therapist, and maybe a dietitian, and maybe a fitness trainer, and maybe a recovery coach who's going to help somebody kind of get, a job or get back to school or find some purpose in life. But there is zero doubt in my mind, digital platforms and tools are going to play an instrumental role in all of that. Digital platforms can help connect all of these healthcare professionals. Healthcare professionals, if it's a standalone digital platform, healthcare professionals might prescribe that as part of their treatment. That I want you to do this. This is my prescription to you. Maybe even write it on the pad. Yeah. Go sign up for this thing. Yeah. Here are the biomarkers that we're going to be looking for. We want to see improvement in insulin resistance. Let's see what we can get from that service or from that platform. And then adjust as needed. So that prescriber's still going to need to be involved because medications might need to be adjusted. The therapist might need to get involved. I just talked to somebody earlier today who said, had a patient making great progress, losing all this weight, reversing diabetes, but had a severe trauma history, childhood sexual abuse. And when she finally got thin enough, she said, I don't think I want to do this treatment anymore because I'm worried that I'm going to be a victim again. People are starting to look at me in a different way.
Wow.
And that sucks. That she doesn't want to be sexually attractive to anyone because she doesn't want to be victimized. So the treatment for that isn't a pill from the psychiatrist. Right. The treatment from that isn't a digital platform to help her stay on her diet. The treatment for that is some kind of a trauma therapist to now help her work through that trauma and recognize you are not going to give in to that. It's not going to serve you well. You're letting your childhood abuse ruin your life today.
Yeah.
But they've got to help her cope with those feelings. They've got to help her do all that. So it's multidisciplinary effort. Sometimes gets complicated by things like that. But we can do it. It is fixable. It's treatable. It's addressable.
Nice. I love the multidisciplinary effort because I think that that's, again, a lot of the misconceptions around, I think, just the way that medical practice occurs is that people think that, a doctor should be an expert in everything. And it's like, well, would you expect your mechanic to be able to come to your house and do your plumbing? Like, it's different things, right? So I think it's insane to think that, like, again, I had Dr. Quadro on earlier, and he's like an ICU specialist, and good on him that he's actually seeking out, nutrition, because he's understanding the role that metabolic health plays in his practice. So he's seeking out nutrition. But doctors in these other areas of practice, like, there's so much effort that's required for them to master their craft that for you to expect them to also have a very intricate understanding of the role that nutrition, all these things, but like, they should know about the role, but for them to have the ability to also coach somebody up on that, just, with all of the patients that they have to see, like, that's not realistic to expect that to happen. I don't think. I think that you have to put people together. Like, you have to, we have to value dietitians more in our state. And that's actually something I want to ask you more about too, because I've talked to people in like other countries like Brazil, for instance, where nutritionists are held in a higher light. Like, they're like, I feel like in the United States here, like, unless you're a registered dietitian, and even a registered dietitian, you're not thought of as, like, it's, the perception isn't that you're on the same level as a doctor, right? Like, people would think that's like much lower than a doctor. People who aren't in the know, I think, like, the standard population would think that. Whereas in Brazil, they're almost regarded as high as a doctor is, like, they're with their level of expertise. And I assume the reason why that might not be the case here is because, I don't think that our training for nutritionists and registered dietitians is all that great. So you end up having, a wide variety of differing opinions and people who aren't necessarily helping people that well with nutrition and diet. So is that something that needs to happen? Like, what would be, from your eyes as a practitioner, what would be the thing that would need to happen in the nutrition space that would allow a practitioner to feel more comfortable recommending their client to a nutritionist? And maybe I'm wrong in assessing that, but it seems like there's a discomfort there in saying, like, in a doctor saying, okay, like, you have this condition, I'm going to send you to this nutritionist to help support the nutritional side of this thing. What does that need to look like to get there?
So at the end of the day, I'm a results-oriented kind of a person.
Okay.
And I think that's why we have all the skepticism of dietitians in the United States today. So if I refer somebody to a dietitian for weight loss and they say, count your calories, but continue eating processed foods, doesn't matter what you're eating, you should actually go out of your way to eat everything in moderation and learn how to be a moderate eater instead of a binge eater.
Look.
We know that maybe that works for 1 or 2% of people. Maybe it does. I don't know. I haven't seen it work myself, but maybe it worked. Maybe there are human beings that can do that and do that well. And we certainly have experts out there saying that that's what works. So I'm hoping that they actually see real results with people when they recommend that. But the reality is, when we look at all of the different, even diet war camps, the vegans versus the vegetarians versus the carnivore people versus the keto low carb people, almost all of them are shunning processed foods from big food. They're going for whole foods, they're going for real food, natural food. That is a theme across all of the diet wars. But it is not a theme that gets carried out by dietitians, because dietitians, unfortunately, are getting education that is largely funded by big food.
Great point.
Their education is funded by General Mills and other major food players, and so they're not getting education. So back to the main question, what would it take? Results.
Yeah.
Once dietitians can show that they can be effective, that their advice actually makes a meaningful difference, that their advice is implementable, that their advice really works in real human beings who have real stress, we're not going to see a change. We're not going to see insurance companies reimbursing for those services, because insurance companies don't want to reimburse for ineffective treatments. So let's make the treatments more effective.
Yeah.
And, some of that's going to need more research. I don't shun that at all. I welcome that. I welcome research funding with large, trials of different dietary strategies. Let's pit the vegan diet against a low-carb diet or against a ketogenic diet or against a carnivore diet. Maybe do all of them in a really large sample. Do it for a year and see what happens. And then let's stick to the results of those trials.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me too, that again, you can't deny results when people are getting better. And especially, I think a lot of in this space too, people are dealing with depression, anxiety. These aren't acute problems. These are problems that they've been dealing with for a long time. So you can't fake that type of progress. When people are seeing those benefits, it's like you were crippled by this for 5 years, 10 years, however long you've had it for, and now you're better. Like you can't deny that. How much of this do you think comes down to changing, like Nina Teicholz is at this conference today. She has her nutrition coalition. She's trying to do a ton of great work to help change dietary guidelines. There's obviously the curriculum that's being taught to dietitians and nutritionists. How much of that do you think is going to play a role in this? One of the things that I think is really that I'm optimistic about is that you see a lot of nutritionists and dietitians who are seeking better information. They know that these governing nutrition bodies are not giving good information, so they're seeking that out. And I do think right now, that is the best answer. It's unfortunately, you can't I get questions all the time, what's a good nutrition certification to get? I'm like, not many of them. Maybe a couple that are okay, but they're not one that's going to get you on, a job. They're not. So how much of this do you think is, I think the short answer to me makes sense that if you're a dietitian, you're a nutritionist, and you're trying to level up your thinking, you need to go seek that information yourself. You need to take it upon yourself to get better so you can better treat your patients and people are coming to you. But is there taking a step up the ladder, is there something that we can do for changing the dietary guidelines or maybe developing a unifying body of curriculum for nutritionists and dietitians to go through? Is that something that you think is required? And if it is, do you think it's possible? Not the easiest question.
Well, it's an easy question with a very difficult, probably long drawn-out answer especially in terms of timeline of implementation.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the first things that I would want to do is take out financial conflicts of interest with big food from the dietary guidelines. I actually think anybody who has had any financial incentive, financial arrangement with a big food maker has no business being on the Dietary Guidelines Committee. If they want to make money and serve as consultants, that's great. It's a free country. We're a capitalist economy. Go out and make your money. But you have no business making dietary guidelines for the entire population when you have financial incentives to recommend Lucky Charms over eggs as a healthy food. When nutritional quote-unquote experts, or what I would probably say, what nutritional quote-unquote hired guns, when they are recommending Lucky Charms over eggs, there's a problem. And until we address that problem, we're not going to make progress. Psychiatry was in the cesspool of pharma for a long time, and many would argue we still are. But the American Psychiatric Association, for better or worse, made the decision years ago now to extricate pharmaceutical companies from their annual meeting. And that was a huge decision because prior to that, pharmaceutical companies had big, glamorous, fancy booths with very attractive pharma reps, all being nice to everyone.
Of course.
Schmoozing with you, giving you nice pens or nice perks, dinners, all sorts of stuff, and then getting you to prescribe their drug. And guess what? Pharmaceutical companies don't spend billions of dollars on that kind of marketing if they didn't know it really works. Yeah. It really works, and it works extraordinarily well. And as I said, for better or worse, the APA at least took a major step in the right direction and said, okay, enough's enough. We cannot have this much pharmaceutical influence over our annual meeting. We need to have unbiased researchers get up and present their research, and the program needs to focus on what we think is best for patients not what we think is best for our sponsors. And I think we need to do the same thing in the dietary field and the nutritional field.
Yeah. I love that, and so great to hear that. I didn't realize that the psychiatric community had done such a great job of kind of removing pharmaceutical impact from some of those meetings. That's something I wasn't aware of. That to me, again, going back to my thoughts around, I'm a hopeful optimistic. I'm like just helplessly optimistic in most of the things that are going on in the world. So I'm always kind of looking for the silver lining. And that to me, like when you highlight it that way, it makes it seem like a system problem. And to me, systems are fixable. It's like it'd be a lot worse if there was just a lot of evil people out there, right? Like that would be a bad thing. But if it's the matter of that, we have a system that isn't quite right. We have, nutritional guidelines that are being influenced by money from companies that are not influenced for you to get healthier, but influenced for you to take their products. Like there's a path towards us fixing that. Not that it's going to be the easiest path. And that's kind of like, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. I'm going to pose this question as I was thinking about this last night, how I wanted to ask you this question. But let's say tomorrow you become the president of the United States. All right. And I imagine if you were to become the
God help us all.
I think we'd be in good shape if you were. I'd be happy about it. It can't get worse. It can't get worse. So let's say that happens. I would have to imagine, I'm sure you have many things that you'd like to instill change in, but let's say that, mental health and psychiatry is an area that is still the primary focus for you. What would be the first thing you would do? What would you instill tomorrow if you were in office that could make a lasting impact? And I know it's a loaded question, so if you need to take a minute, but what would that be?
If no fun, I might go into that to make me metabolic healthy, but I find it the same. And it's God.
It's complex because I can think of what I would want to do, but it ends up being like 3 or 4 different things.
Let's hear.
So the first thing is we need more money focused on mental health. Mental illness, mental disorders, mental health challenges are the leading cause of disease burden and the leading cause of disability on planet Earth right now. Yet mental health research funding only gets 4% of the global research dollars. 4% of the global research healthcare funding goes to the leading cause of ruined lives, the leading cause of disability, the leading cause of suicide, the leading cause of homelessness, the leading cause of incarceration. When you look at the prison population, at least 50% are suffering from a chronic mental illness. When you look at the homeless population, at least 50%. It's unconscionable that we are not doing a better job of research funding. But one of the reasons we're not doing a better job of research funding is because the research funding isn't getting us anywhere. We are spinning our wheels. People are lost in the complexity of what the hell causes mental illness.
Yeah.
So obviously, if I'm now president, I get to take a little initiative and say, guess what, folks? Mental disorders are metabolic disorders of the brain, and we need a whole new paradigm. And so we're going to do more research. We're going to do research on both the mechanisms and how that works, more of the science of that, although we've got decades and decades of science to support it. So by no means is this new, but there are some really seminal studies that could be done to definitively prove this theory in no uncertain terms. And more importantly, help us identify what are some of the mechanisms, and then probably more important than that, how effective can metabolic treatment strategies really be for real patients? And how can we get clinicians to implement these with real people? Real people come with so many complexities. They come with multiple diagnoses, so it's not so simple as one diagnosis. They come with, socioeconomic burden. They come with trauma and abuse. They come with racism and all sorts of other societal problems, and we have to try to help them. And so things can get complex. So we need research. What are the best strategies to help somebody facing these situations versus those situations? And how can we help everyone? But maybe people are different, need different things. And then we need more funding for clinical services. Access to care is a crisis in the United States right now. 50% of people who have a serious mental illness get no mental health care. 50% serious mental illness, no mental health care. Right now, if you've got insurance, healthcare insurance, and you want to find a psychiatrist, good luck. Good luck.